Courtesy of the SCP Foundation from the Tales of Mr. Collector, this is Mr. Clank by Dr. Gears. Creative Commons licensing and full artist credit are in the description. Mr. Clank woke suddenly, as he always did, and looked around blinking. The sun was still somewhat bright through the wisps of storm clouds, the great city glittering in the distance as bright and fresh as new silver. Mr. Clank stretched, feeling the smooth roll of clockworks along his spine. It had been a hard choice, but even a flickering life was still a life. The key turned slowly, tapping out like a second heartbeat, a cool reminder that he was indeed alive. He was walking, smiling as the gears kept perfect time, the fields and small trees passing by in an easy rhythm. Even if it had taken some questionable steps, at least he was still able to continue the journey. He was still far off hours later, but Mr. Clank wasn't worried. He was making good time and was still able to take in the scenery. The mountains, the glittering lake, it was all bathed in a freshness, as if seen with new eyes, which, in a way, might not be far off. Mr. Clank smiled, walking to a tall, wide tree, leaning against the bark and watching the leaves drift and flutter. Poor Mr. Red. He'd never get to see any of this. Maybe Mr. Clank could tell him about it. Give him a small sample of these wonders. The clinking slowed, easing down as the key stilled. So tired now. Just a small rest before the road. Mr. Clank woke suddenly, as he always did. Looking around with a start, a hazy nicotine yellow sun burned through city clouds, bathing everything in a hazy twilight. The city loomed up across a sprawl of squat dark homes, a few small gardens, and thin trees standing in the haze. Mr. Clank stretched, feeling a harsh click of the gears in his shoulders and arms engaged, his spine shuddering hard once before smoothing out, the key clicking time like a metronome in a military march. He started walking slowly, feeling his steps and watching the homes, wondering why he'd chosen the way, this path, this idea. The thick cogs jutting from his back caught a cool breeze between the homes, chilling him deeply. The crumbled outskirts of the city were around him hours later. Moldering heaps of rusted metal made Mr. Clank shiver involuntarily, wondering where the sun was now. Time seemed to be passing like the coppery dust on the streets. Everything seeming to carry a kind of crumbling frailness. A timeless age. The silvery shards were streaked with rust and soot. The sound of a sick dog barking, breaking. The stillness for only a second. Mr. Clank sighed, feeling a shudder in his chest, leaning against a crumbling doorway. Mr. Red had said something, but he couldn't remember. Mr. Clank worried, his memory feeling a little fuzzy now. There had been a tree, a silver something. He was so tired, his clockwork shivering and seizing with a jolt. Exhausted, he slid down to rest, eyes flickering over the road. End of part 1.